Hi, this is Peggy from thehappymystic.com, and today I'm going to do a quick natal chart reading for somebody that's one of our readers. Of course, this is my interpretation and what patterns I see and how this made sense to me. You may see things differently and come to your own conclusions. I've made this chart available to download, so you can get the link to this chart in the description. Look for chart number 1. For this reading, I'm going to start with the nodes, and then I'm going to work into the big 3 placements. I drew up this chart using my favorite SolarFire astrology software, and you can learn more, including how to get 15% off your own copy if you go to thehappymystic.com/SolarFire. So let's get to it. I often like to start with the South Node, and if we look at this individual South Node, it is in Aries in the 10th house. And since we are thinking about the South Node, this is karmic baggage. This is things that haunt us from past lives, things that didn't go great, lessons we haven't learned yet, wounds that we need to heal in lives going forward. So if we think of some keywords about Aries and the 10th house that kind of reflect that, some that I came up with were sure, brave and warrior, but also aggressive, angry, violent and abusive, and fighting, overly ambitious. And then when we look at keywords for the 10th house, we've got that social role component or society, planning for one's future, and also reputation. And let's look at aspects to the South Node that we'll be diving into when we start putting all this together. We have the moon conjunct the South Node, and that is from Pisces. It is very close to the 10th house cusp. It is in the 9th house, but I would almost consider that 10th house, like 9th house bleeding into the 10th house is how I would see the moon. So then we also have the South Node conjunct the midheaven as well. Next, I'm going to be looking at the South Node. Did I say that wrong? Next, I'm going to be looking at the South Node ruler. And since the South Node is in Aries, its ruler is Mars. And we found Mars in 2nd house Leo. So when thinking about keywords for Leo, we do have royalty, high society, and performer, but also like that overbearing leader, bragger, attention seeker, ruler. And keywords for the 2nd house, we have money, security, stability, resource hoarding, or problems with money, someone who's penniless, poverty, or not safe or not stable in some way. There are a few aspects to Mars. Mars is conjunct Saturn from 2nd house Leo. It is also trine Neptune from 6th house Sagittarius, and it's got a really tight square to Mercury in 11th house Taurus. So we'll be looking at all of that in a moment. So now that we've listed all of the details of the South Node placement and the South Node's chart ruler placement, it's time to really start brainstorming and trying to piece together a story by seeing patterns that develop or recurring themes that stick out to us. So let's start with the South Node itself. It's in Aries in the 10th house, and we have this Mars component. So when we think of Mars in Aries, we think of this violent, aggressive person, someone who's had to fight in some way, whether that's an actual war or just something that is perceived to be a war in their mind. This is someone aggressively asserting themselves somehow. Then we have the 10th house, and that makes me think this is somebody in the public eye in some way. They were well known in their society or community, and maybe they had a career that made them a figurehead as well. And now if we look closer at that Mars placement in 2nd house Leo, when we think about Leo, I think about rank, position, rulership, being an aristocrat, and asserting power over others in some way. Could be a performer as well, someone who expresses themselves outwardly somehow. And then we have the 2nd house, which that's all about money and stability and safety. Now I'm going to add to that this moon that is conjunct the South Node. It is in Pisces, and it's right almost on the 10th house cusp. I mean, it's very close to being 10th house, so I would almost consider it sitting on that midheaven. So when I see the moon here, I think of family connection, possibly. It could be a mother. It could also be a feeling or a sense of duty to your family as well. And again, right on that midheaven, this could have been a well-known family in its society or in its circle. Add in the Pisces component, and in the South Node, that always makes me think of religion in some way. But there could also be some kind of escapism or substance abuse or some kind of feeling of helplessness or confinement with Pisces. And if we go back to our chart ruler Mars, it is conjunct Saturn also in the 2nd house Leo. And when I think of Saturn in the context of the South Node, I'm thinking about some kind of stoic, cold, kind of soul-crushing challenge or loneliness, maybe even a father, like a cold, austere, unfeeling father type figure. Also, a sense of duty and responsibility, even if that is incredibly difficult. And because it is also in Leo in the second house, again, we're dealing with the idea of money and safety and security with the second house, and also possibly rank or title or high society when it comes to Leo. Next, I'd like to look at this really tight square that our South Node's ruler Mars has with Mercury, and that is from 11th house Taurus. So when I think of a square in terms of the South Node, I'm thinking of something that challenged or ruined this person, some kind of undoing for this individual. And when we first look at Mercury from this kind of negative slant, this could be talking, lying, learning or teaching, running their mouth. It could also be curiosity, and it could be cheating or scamming in some way. But using one's voice in some detrimental way could play a role here. And then we look at the 11th house, the house of friends, which really groups, it's associates, it's society, and future plans. With our Taurus reference in the South Node, this could be clinging on to old ways or stubbornness, trying to keep the status quo. This could also be holding on to money or holding on to resources, taking more than we have, or it could be struggling with money in some way as well, and that sense of safety and security. And one more piece of our South Node puzzle that we're going to look at is this trine that our South Node's ruler Mars makes with Neptune from 6th house Sagittarius. So a trine is kind of fueling this trouble that this person has. It's like supporting their problem. And when we think about Neptune in connection to the South Node, this could be some kind of confinement or escapism, a substance abuse, or some kind of helpless feeling or a weakness. It could also have a spiritual component as well. So religion, again, could play a role in this. And we have Neptune in Sagittarius. So another religious or faith reference. With Sagittarius connected to the South Node, this could be some kind of dogmatic ideology and arrogance as well. And all of this is taking place in the 6th house, which is the house of servants. So this could have to do with actually being a servant or being in service to someone in some way. This could be having to kind of martyr yourself to take care of others, duty, responsibility, that crushing adulting where you are living to serve someone else and not your own wishes or feeding your own soul. Or this could have to do with some kind of health issue as well. So now that we dug into all the South Node parts and pieces, this is really where that storytelling and using our intuition to put this together comes into play. And as I was going through these parts and pieces of the South Node, I did notice several patterns develop or things that I kept hearing myself say over and over. So here's a summary of what I got from the South Node. And this isn't some beautifully written thing. This is just kind of me thinking out loud. So we've got the South Node. We've got this person that is angry or violent in some way with this Aries South Node placement. So we've got aggression. And we have this conjunction with the midheaven, and also the South Node is conjunct the moon right over that midheaven. So this makes me think this was somebody who was a public figure. And we also see Mercury in that square with Mars from the 11th house, which also makes me think society. This was maybe somebody who was high society. And we also have the South Node ruler, Mars, sitting in Leo. So there's another kind of royal or aristocrat layer to this idea of high society. So there's another part of that recurring theme of well-known in their social circles or from a good family. And there are also a few places where the ideas of family and money come into play as well. We have the South Node conjunct the moon. We have Mars, the South Node ruler, conjunct Saturn. So that is the classic mother and father in astrology. Right there, conjunct the South Node and the South Node's ruler. And for the money references, we have South Node ruler Mars in the 2nd house, the house of money. And we also have Mercury that is in a tight square to Mars sitting in Taurus, the sign that would love nothing more than to hoard all the resources in connection to that South Node. One other pattern that I felt developed in conjunction with the South Node was a religious overtone. We've got that with the moon in Pisces. We also have this trine that Neptune has from Sagittarius. So Neptune itself having a spiritual overtone and Sagittarius as well. So if I had to boil this all down, I see this as an individual who was just very angry, possibly even violent in some way, some kind of public figure, high society aristocrat with money type of figure, definitely asserting power and monetary influence, in my opinion, and fighting for a cause. And that could be actual war, actual battle, or just some cause. I get a sense that there was a lot of responsibility or sense of duty to family, and that maybe that family was very cold and very stoic, very austere, not a lot of love in this family, maybe, and possibly some kind of dogmatic ideology, religious undertone to this whole thing as well. And then we have this Mercury in Taurus in the 11th house. So that makes me think this stubborn group thinking within the society, using their voice just to keep things the way they are, maintain status quo, which could be the high society itself, or it could be religion, or this person could possibly been scamming people out of money as well. They could have felt like they didn't have a choice as well, that possibly it was some kind of servitude or this duty and responsibility, and they maybe felt helpless in their role, as though they had to submit to their religious responsibilities. So now that we've gotten a good sense of what this person's South Node may be saying, I like to think about what are some natural tendencies that could come from this, because I don't like to just read the South Node just to read the South Node, because the whole idea is that these karmic patterns keep repeating themselves. And as someone who loves evolutionary astrology and the idea that we can use our natal charts to grow as human beings, this karmic baggage of our South Node is one of the keys to understanding how this all works. So what are the natural tendencies that could come from this person's South Node baggage? And this could be either they fall back into old ways, such as this reactive behavior they have, or religious obsession of some kind. There could be an aggression, an undertone of aggression, or martyring oneself for their family, whether the family asked for it or not, right? Feeling as though they have no choices, like they just have to go with the tides or the ebb and flow of what they think their family thinks they should be doing, or their society thinks they should be doing. Or they may feel like they have to put on airs in some way, and they might be reluctant to kind of show the world themselves and to assert what they want and how they feel. But one's reaction to the South Node could also go the other direction. And it could be a rejection of those things. So they could reject rigid spiritual practices or reject any sense that they're being controlled at all. Maybe they want ultimate freedom and they're trying to completely break those chains altogether. They may reject violence, and they may also reject this idea of high society or the putting on the airs completely. And now we're going to move into the North Node. And this is always a bright spot in a natal chart reading, especially after you've dove headfirst into the quagmire that is the South Node. The North Node is so much more refreshing. I do want you to know that I'm using my natal chart reading template, and I love this template, and it's actually available for everyone on our website, and I'll have the link to that in the description. So now on to the North Node. We find our North Node, obviously, right across from the South Node, and it is in Libra in the 4th house. And luckily, we can use much more positive language when we're talking about the North Node. So keywords that I will put with Libra are harmony, balance, partnership, peaceful, aesthetic and beauty, and respectful. And then keywords for the 4th house would be that home, family, and truest self-image. Our North Node ruler is Venus, and it can be found in 12th house Cancer. So keywords for Cancer are domestic, protective, comfort, nurturing, compassion, ambition, and vulnerability. And keywords for the 12th house are hidden karmic baggage, confinement, self-undoing, and unconscious triggers. Those aren't necessarily glowing keywords for the North Node, but important nonetheless. It is important to note that our North Node's ruler, Venus, is conjunct Jupiter, also in the 12th house, Cancer. Other North Node aspects to note, we do have the North Node in opposition to the Moon from that ninth house, maybe 10th house Pisces, because it's conjunct the south node. So it's going to be opposed the north node. Our north node is also trine the sun from the 11th house Gemini. Venus, our north node ruler, is also trine Uranus from 5th house Scorpio, and it is square Pluto from 4th house Libra. So our south node is where we have been. It's that karmic pattern that we've lived out over and over again. This is like the sun, and we're like the plant in the window trying to grow toward it. So notes I have on the north node, we have this Libra Venus connection in the 4th house. We have love, harmony, and peaceful relationships. And in the 4th house, this is within the family. We have Libra, so we have partnership, a positive self-image. And teamwork also plays a role here as well. And then we find our Venus, North Node ruler, sitting in the 12th house in Cancer. So when we think about Cancer, of course, we think about home and family, being domestic, nurturing, and compassion. And I think it's interesting that we have this North Node ruler sitting in our 12th house of baggage, of unconscious triggers. And that makes me think it is really important, and it's time for this person to deal with that undercurrent that is reflected in their south node. So it is time to heal through emotions and caretaking, love of a family, and nurturing that family in return. And we have Jupiter sitting there right next to Venus, also in 12th house Cancer. But Jupiter, have faith, be lighthearted and generous and warm. This is the benevolent king. Be jolly and be generous and warm. That's what this says to me. And their north node is supported by trine with their sun in 11th house Gemini. To me, this says be open-minded, be curious, be social, and be a team player. And surround yourself with people who are equally open-minded and curious. And also, setting a life strategy for yourself might be really important, like set a course for your life. That will help support whatever direction your north node is wanting to take you. And our north node ruler Venus is trine Uranus from 5th house Scorpio. So this is also supported by just finding pleasure in life, even if it's unique, even if it's unconventional or even taboo in some way. Having fun or finding pleasure on your own terms is important here. And of course, we do have our north node in opposition to the moon in 9th house, 10th house Pisces. So there may be some kind of inner tug of war that you need to watch out for when trying to grow toward your north node. And when I see the moon in Pisces, that's a lot of feelings. And Pisces has the tendency to escape from feelings. It just all gets to be too much. So addiction or just zoning out or just numbing out may be something you need to watch for, because again, we've got the north node down here in Libra in the 4th house, so that making those nurturing connections within a partnership and within the family are so important. So just maybe watch for that numbing of your feelings or trying to escape in some way from the emotion. And we also have Venus square Pluto, also in the 4th house Libra. So Pluto can be renewing or it can be crushing. And I think this is a placement that you should always keep your mind on, always, because going through some sort of transformation into a peaceful, harmonious, respectful home life is crucial. And with Pluto square your north node ruler, this might not come easy. This might be something that takes work and that might not always feel or look pretty, but is still worth it nonetheless. It has to be worked at through diligence, but I really think this is the key to everything. So now it is kind of interesting to contrast the north node with the south node. So the south node was all about this duty and responsibility and this feeling of being almost trapped or in servitude to this high society, to this family that possibly was very unloving, and to some sort of dogmatic religious ideology. When you look at the north node, this could have been a person that was desperately clinging to the status quo, this group mentality where they didn't feel like they could think for themselves. And life maybe wasn't about love, but it was about power or holding on to that role in society. And then contrast that with the north node, and we have all of these themes of love within a family, having fun just for fun's sake, no matter what that looks like to you. It's being a team player, it's being lighthearted, complete contrast from what we're seeing in the south node. So if I were to summarize the north node, I first like to think of what are you growing toward? And the way I see it, this is healing through the love of a family and life partner. I think this will take deliberate effort, but being part of a team, and rejecting that instinct to control and assert, like what we saw in your South Node, within a loving home may be really important. Also having lighthearted faith. We see Jupiter conjunct your North Node ruler, that lighthearted, benevolent, jolly king that has faith in life, as opposed to that South Node dogmatic ideology. Also setting a course for your life and utilizing some kind of life strategy might be important, and surrounding yourself with people who will support that for you. And this focus on open-mindedness and curiosity rather than that closed-minded group mentality that we saw in the South Node. And also that all-important moon conjunct the South Node, oppose the North Node in 9th house, 10th house, Pisces, moving toward your North Node. Being careful not to escape from emotion and escape from your feelings might play a really important role in this. Now we're ready to move on to the big three in this person's chart. And the reason that I like to go in this order is because the South Node shows us their past and the North Node shows us the future. And then the rest of the chart, the big three and all the rest of the planets, these are the tools that they've come into this life with to help them move toward that North Node. The big three, the sun, moon, and ascendant, are vital in everyone's chart. And if you want to dive a little bit deeper into yours, we have a big three reflection journal where you get to dive deep and reflect on each of those three pieces and also how they might work together as a whole to help drive your behavior and ways that you can lean into them a little bit more. If you're interested, there will be a link to that in the description. So the first thing we're going to look at in this person's chart is their sun. And the sun we've looked to in relation to their South Node. It is in the 11th house in Gemini. Keywords for Gemini are curiosity, logical, analytical, talking, anxious, restless, and detached. Open-minded could also be put on that list. Keywords for the 11th house: group, friends, society, future plans, associates, and clubs and organizations. There are some aspects made to this person's sun. Their sun is trine Pluto from 4th house in Libra, and it is also in opposition to Neptune from 6th house Sagittarius. So to start laying out the story of this person's sun, I would say that this person is a storyteller, a talker, or a teacher within groups, their society, and among their associates. Setting a life strategy and setting a course for their life may be important, as is who they surround themselves with that help them move toward that as well. Their sun is supported in this trine with Pluto by transformation and power and healing, in this pleasant and balanced and diplomatic, aesthetic Libran way. And this will be within all things home and domestic and nurturing and caretaking. So we're talking family here. Also a changing and healing of their truest self-image as well. Also, there may be a tug of war. Here we've got Neptune opposed to the sun. There might be this tug of war with this need to explore a sense of faith and meaning, becoming one with the higher power through work or health and the minutia of adulthood in the 6th house. So to boil down the sun and the sun complex, we've really got a sense of who you are amongst your associates, creating this life plan, this life strategy with this open-minded yet emotionally detached Gemini vibe. And we have that kind of versus the stepping into your search for faith through adulting and kind of the boring but important work parts of life, health, and also being in service to others. Neptune is a very selfless planet, and in the 6th house, that is the house of servants as well. So really doing work for others, helping others. And of course, this transformative element that supports that as well. Transformation into this peaceful family person and partner. Next, we're going to move to the moon in 9th house, maybe 10th house Pisces. And we've looked at this moon quite a bit when we were looking at the South Node and the North Node. And when we look at keywords for Pisces, we've got spirituality, merging and connection, empathy, that divine antenna, seeking faith and escapism. And when we're looking at the 9th house, 10th house, 9th house, we've got a search for faith, mind expansion, education, philosophy, and meaning making, but then it's really moving into that 10th house, which is social role, who you really want to be, reputation, and your highest goal. The only aspect we're going to look at with the moon, again, is this all-important moon and midheaven conjunction. So when we start to piece the moon together, we've got this dreamer and this mystic, this person searching for meaning and faith. They are searching for enlightenment. And in the ninth house, they are on a journey for that. But then moving into that 10th house and that conjunction with the midheaven, this is also a way society could see you or what you may be after in life. This could actually be your biggest goal or your life's work. And again, when we're talking about the moon, that makes me think of the sun again and this connection it has with Neptune. Again, searching for faith, searching for spirituality, and Sagittarius, seeking. And also this trine that the sun had with Pluto in fourth house, Libra, the house of home. So then we've got the moon, which is the mother in astrology. So again, another family component. One thing to watch for with the moon in Pisces is that escapism. Again, we did talk about that when we were talking about the North Node, but Pisces, especially with the moon in Pisces, that is so much feelings coming in. That is a flood of emotions. And the temptation is going to be there to escape, to numb out. And that is really something to watch for with the moon in Pisces, because you can imagine how numbing out would work against that need to build that loving, nurturing, tight family connection. And the next step in this big three puzzle is their ascendant. And their first house cusp is sitting in watery Cancer. So again, we're seeing another water reference and another family reference. Keywords for Cancer are compassionate, protective, nurturing, domestic, a family person, selfless caretaker, and even a bit ambitious. So since their first house ascendant is in Cancer, their chart ruler is back to that all-important moon. I feel like the moon is kind of the key to this chart. And we find the moon again right there in that 9th house, 10th house Pisces, like we've talked about. And Pisces, we've got that, again, nurturing, compassionate, divine connection, selfless, blending and merging. So if we start to look at aspects that have to do with this ascendant, we have two with the ascendant itself. We have square with Pluto from the 4th house Libra, and also a trine with Uranus from 5th house Scorpio. So with their ascendant in Cancer, this person is giving off the vibe of the selfless caretaker and ambitious protector and family person. They also may seem easy breezy and blendable with who they're with, incredibly compassionate and connected spiritually as well. And this may be something they are known for. They might be known in their community or their social circles or groups as this family person, this caretaker, and selfless human being. One interesting aspect is the trine that their ascendant has with Uranus in 5th house Scorpio. So we have Uranus, this rebel or this revolutionary in the 5th house of pleasure in Scorpio, the truth-seeking, emotionally deep, even taboo sign. To me, this feels like finding fun or pleasurable activities in a way that is completely your own, other people might not get. But with Scorpio, we also have this tie to mortality. Maybe this is a live like it's your last day type of placement. Find enjoyment any way you can, as if today might be your last. Scorpio is curious and passionate, and that may also help drive this 5th house Uranus to explore everything that the world has to offer, no matter what society tells you is right or wrong. So that also helps support this ascendant and this caretaking family person, nurturing mask that you wear. And another thing that's a little bit curious is that this ascendant in Cancer is square Pluto in 4th house Libra. So we have this sign of the family, square Pluto in the house of home, and in Libra, the sign of relationships. To me, I get this feeling that this Cancer ascendant, that's the mask. That's what you show the world. And then, of course, we have the chart ruler, the moon, conjunct the midheaven. So this is really how this person is known, as this family person. But then we've got this square to transformative Pluto in the house of home. So it's almost like this conflict between the person that you're showing the world you are and what is really happening inside your home and within your relationship. It's like some kind of dissonance there, like the two aren't lining up, even though they seem like they're the same thing. One is maybe more of a facade than what is actually happening. And we talked about earlier how this Pluto placement, this 4th house Libra North Node sitting there as well. This creating this actual, real, harmonious, nurturing, respectful home in partnership is vital. And I think that's something that needs to probably always be paid attention to. What am I showing the world and what is actually happening? Because this is what needs to be actually happening. So I think one really important message to take from this chart is to make this mask be the reality, to live out who you are showing people that you are and who people think you are, because then you can feel that in a more genuine way as well. So remember to find the link to this chart in the notes. And if you want to find the link to the natal chart template I was using today or to our solar fire information and coupon, the links for those will be in the description. So I want to give a huge thank you to the person who allowed me to read their chart today. That was a big honor for me, and I am sending love your way. And I hope you all have a great day and take care.